Who was he going to meet with? What was his purpose for being here?
Those are just some of the questions retired FBI special agent and owner of Baseline Investigations in Arizona, Jim Eggleston, has after hearing about what happened to 18-year-old Parker Lee.
Was he here on, personal business to see friends or family? Was he coming out here for a job interview? That type of thing. So that's going to be a great starting point.
Tempe police say on June 15th, 3 days after MCSO officers found Parker's burning body, he was reported missing by a family member. His last known location is believed to be at a home in Tempe where his belongings were left behind. Eggleston says recovering any data from electronic devices will help provide clues for investigators about who Parker was speaking with and how his body ended up at the burn pit.
Cell phones, computers, that's going to reveal a lot of information. It's going to take some time to recover and extract the data from those devices. If they were destroyed in the fire or some other way, that data might still be available.
In the meantime, Eggleston expects investigators to canvass the burn pit area, looking for evidence, footprints, even potentially security camera footage from places on the way in and out from this rural area in the Tonto National Forest.
The fact that the body was burned itself makes it a very malicious crime, and that's going to make it more difficult to recover some of the evidence. It could even make it more difficult to determine cause of death, but it certainly doesn't destroy all evidence.
Eggleston says one potential reason why Parker was reported missing by a family member days after his body was found is because he was a young adult that was already traveling out of state. He might not have been in daily contact with his family even before his death. Of course, when we learn any new information, we'll be sure to let you know as soon as possible. For now, live in the studio, Elia Polikoff. Derek.
All right.